You remember the last time they laughed at your dream. Not softly like a warning, sharp, echoing in an empty room. You sat there, heart pounding, silence thick enough to taste. They didn't need words to pin you down. Your hesitation spoke first. In that moment, you felt the shift, the cold slide of power ripping itself free from your chest. You looked away and vowed never to feel that bruise again. They say respect is earned, but respect isn't a currency you collect. It's a byproduct of an absence you remove your need, and they fill the void with fear. If you crave approval, they will never see you. Approval is a spotlight, and spotlights cast shadows. Your value lives in the shadows they fear to enter. Picture the mask you polished every morning. Polite, eager, accommodating. It shone so bright they forgot there was flesh underneath. You offered your whole self, bruised and hungry, just to avoid their discomfort. They devoured your kindness, spat it out, and asked for more. You learned, when kindness crumbles, there is no refuge. A paradox blooms here. Surrender control, and you seize it. When you stop defending your worth, they started doubting theirs. Cease the chase, the frantic dance of pleasing, and watch their scramble for your attention. Silence is your recalibration. Stillness, your rebellion. In that pause, you reclaim every fragment of power you surrendered to their contempt. Now, sit with that truth. Let discomfort break and reshape you. This is not a pep talk. It's a confrontation. Look inward at the walls you built to keep them satisfied. Tear a brick out and stare through the hole. They don't deserve a seat in your mind. They deserve the echo of absence. If this cuts too close, if your skin tingles with the memory of each apology you accepted, subscribe and stay here. Comment with the moment you realized silence speaks louder than words, because beyond that echo lies a darker clarity, and it's time you learned its rhythm. You remember the sting when they dismissed your anger as overreaction. Their eyes narrowed, lips curved in that indifferent smirk. You're too sensitive. As if sensitivity were a crime, they spoke as though your voice was negotiable, a commodity to trade for peace. But anger is not a bargaining chip. It is the radar that alerts you to violated boundaries. They loathed the sound of your pulse quickening because it meant they no longer had permission to step over you. So you learned to mute the tremor in your throat. You folded your outrage into neat pleats, tucked it behind your ribs like contraband. You painted your face calm and carried on. Each forced breath whispered a lie. I'm fine. But silence is a severed artery bleeding truth into the void. They heard your heart in that quiet, and they cringed. You became the ghost in their comfortable story. Presence unearthed their guilt. They tested you with a joke at your expense. Lighten up. They tested you with a demand dressed in kindness. Help me out. They tested you until you snapped, and the snap struck them like thunder. Their shock was exquisite. They couldn't fathom the fracture in your cultivated composure. You watched their scramble for meaning as you stood unmoved. The power surged in your chest, cold and precise. You didn't apologize. You didn't explain. You let the pause linger until their discomfort swallowed them whole. What if disrespect isn't about them, but about you? Not their cruelty, but your tolerance. Each time you shrugged off their jabs, you invited another. Each nod conceded your worth. Each forced laugh whispered that your dignity was optional. Respect isn't a favor. It's an absence of permission. Withdraw your permission and watch them flail. You once believed confrontation meant chaos. You cringed at raised voices, at heated eyes. You equated conflict with loss. But conflict is the anvil on which power is forged. In the heat of collision, clarity emerges. They learn your edges, the limits they cannot cross. When you avoided heat, you became a dull blade, unusable, unseen. You're here now to sharpen. Pull the blade from its sheath. Speak with measured force. Not for victory, not for recognition, but for the quiet knowledge that you are unyielding. Watch them recoil from your tone, calm yet unbreakable. Their eyes dart, searching for the apology they expect, but there is none. You are the storm warning they ignored until it stood before them. They'll call you cold. They'll murmur you're cruel. They'll brand you the villain because they cannot control the narrative. Let them accuse. Accusations are flares in the darkness, revealing your silhouette. Stand within that flare. Presence beyond emotion. Let them illuminate your power. Each time you hesitate, you relinquish. Each time you yield, you concede. Each time you silence your recoil, you kneel. And yet, you'll sit here in this moment still, calculated, watching your own reflection sharpen. A paradox. You must be the harder force, even as you remain the quietest. Your breath stays even while the world tilts. You've inhaled betrayal, exhaled doubt. You've worn respect as a fragile cloak, begging for its weave. Now, you will grow the skin itself. Your armor, your stance becomes the declaration. You need no applause. You need no justification. You need only the distance they cannot bridge. They chase reactions. You allow none. Their attacks land on smooth steel. They retreat, bewildered. In that retreat lies your victory. They fear what they cannot manipulate. They fear the void where your need once lived. They fear the silence bristling with truth. So lean into the discomfort of your own stillness. Notice how their voices warp when met with unresponsiveness. Notice how they hastily rebuild their narrative, searching for a crack. And when they find none, they shrug and step away. And that is your triumph. Absence of vulnerability. This is the first fracture in their expectation. In the next moment, you will push deeper. You will uncover a truth they'd rather forget. That respect isn't given. It's summoned by your refusal to be anyone's guest. You will become the host of your own sovereignty. You felt them shift behind your back. The twitch of unease when they realized you were no longer the same script. They leaned in, searching for the familiar tremor you once wore like a name tag. There was nothing. In the hush of your stillness, they tasted panic. You were no longer a rhythm they could predict, a melody they could hum along to. You became the silent chord that unsettles the composer. Recall the last time you offered vulnerability, spilling your fears in the hope of forging connection. They nodded politely, then tucked your confession into the archive of weapons they wielded. Your fear became their blueprint for control, so you halted the confession. You sealed your lips with intention. Each withheld word grew a wall. They tested the masonry with jests and probing questions, but the bricks held. Your calm became their new battleground. They flung a criticism softly, inconspicuously, hoping to lure you back into reaction. They mocked your silence, labeling it indifference. They whispered that you'd changed, and not for the better. But change was your armor. In their confusion, they revealed the core of their leverage, your consistency. They thrived on your unpredictability, on your emotional supply. Starve them of your reaction, and watch their structure collapse. They leaned on old stories you told. The one about the time you apologized first. The one about the moment you bowed your head. They expected you to reenact the past, to perform your own disgrace for their entertainment. But you rewrote the script. In the vacant spaces where you once capitulated, they found nothing. The memory of your apology haunted them more than the apology itself. It reminded them of a power they once held, now surrendered. Stand inside that surrender. Let each memory of defeat crystallize into calculated resolve. You don't forgive for peace. You forgive for precision, because forgiveness is not mercy. It is the placement of the final stone in your fortress. They expect mercy as weakness. When you grant it, you redefine them as powerless. They tried again with flattery, dressing manipulation as praise. "You're so strong." They cooed, their words a glove over an iron fist. They believed praise would thaw your resolve, coax you back into the warmth of their design. But warmth is the prelude to consumption. You accepted the words like poison, let them flow through your veins until they lost their potency. You did not recoil, but you did not embrace. You consumed and discarded them like cold water, necessary yet distant. Can you hear it? The clatter of their plans crashing against your quiet. They scramble for footholds on the new terrain you created. Their gestures grow erratic, their tone sharper. They cannot script you. They cannot stage you. You exist off their stage. You observe their performance with the detachment of a critic and realize they're terrified of critique. Critique means examination, and examination means discovery. In the glare of their own spotlight, they see the cracked foundation of their strategies. You became the lens that reveals their flaws. In that revelation lies your power. They will turn away, because no one likes the unfiltered mirror. Ask yourself, which version of you did they respect? The pliable negotiator or the unshakable sentinel? They confuse kindness with weakness, agreement with submission, but your strength is neither noise nor fury. It is the silent recalibration of your boundaries, the cold logic of your absence. They cannot break you, because you are not brittle. You are steel-tempered and quiet. Notice how each of their attacks now feels like a reflex, an instinct deprived of its target. They strike at air, seeking reaction. You remain still. In your silence, you gather each blow like a collector, examining its shape. You learn their patterns, their intentions, their weaknesses. And then you choose your moment to strike, not with words, but with presence. Because presence is the gravest consequence. They'll ask you why you've changed, what happened to the person they thought they knew. The question itself is your answer. You've transcended their narrative. You've become an author of your own consequence. Let them wonder. Let them chase the ghost of who you were. Meanwhile, you move forward along the line you drew in the sand, a path they cannot follow. Every inch of space you carve through your detachment is a territory they lose. With each breath, with each pause, you redraw the borders of your sovereignty. They once believed they held your map. Now you hold their uncertainty. It creeps in like smoke, filling every chamber of their certainty until they cough. This is no psychodrama. It's a surgical procedure on their expectations. You are the blade, thin, precise, necessary. You slip between the seams of their manipulation and cut the threads they use to puppeteer you. They feel the laceration, but they cannot see its source. It's invisible. It's inevitable. So breathe. Feel the chill of your own stillness. Taste the clarity in every silent moment. They will rush to fill that silence with chaos, but you will remain unmoved. You will watch the storm rise and fall, knowing you are the eye at its center. And once you settle into that eye, you will see them for what they are, powerless without your consent. They cornered you at the water's edge, tossing questions like stones. Who hurt you? Why did you close off? Each one meant to fracture your calm. They expected pain to spill, to chase away the silence. Instead, you watched each stone hit the still surface and sink without a ripple. Underneath, the current moved unseen, carrying your resolve further from their reach. They peered over the edge, searching for disturbance. They found none, and in that lack of reaction, they glimpsed something more dangerous than anger, indifference. They tried again with urgency, their voice sharp like a siren. Talk to me, please. But urgency is hollow when measured against permanence. You measured time in heartbeats, not hours. You were as patient as the tide, knowing that if you simply allowed the tide to pull back, the shoreline would reveal what they feared most: their own reflections. They saw eyes that did not quiver, a chest that did not heave, a face that did not flinch. In that absence of movement, they felt the gravity of your withdrawal. Their questions echoed unanswered into the void you commanded. Remember the weight of your old promises, their reassuring warmth that masked disquiet. You uttered vows to be present, to be open, to forgive. They draped themselves in those words, believing they were sanctuary. But sanctuary crumbles from within. You held your promises like a ledger. You filed each one away and closed the book. When you snapped that spine shut, the echoes of broken faith ricocheted back to their origin. They realized sanctuary was never a gift you gave. It was a choice you withdrew. Silence raced through the space between you, a predator tracking the falter in their composure. They shifted, glance by glance, seeking an explanation lodged in the quiet. But you offered no explanation, only silence. It carried the weight of consequence. It was a verdict, delivered without flourish. No argument could refute it. No plea could soften it. It was final. They pitched hypothetical scenarios at you. If you and I were friends again, if you could trust me, if you just let me in. Each scenario was a trap, bait to lure you back into emotional supply. You watched their hands twitch around the bait, then stepped back. In that step, you created distance large enough for your self-possession to germinate. Distance was the crucible in which respect was forged. They would learn it by feeling the space you no longer occupy. As they recoiled, you stood firm. You did not look away. You examined their retreat with the calm scrutiny of a surgeon. Their advantage lay in familiarity. Your advantage was radical unfamiliarity. You had dismantled the script they'd written for you. You'd torn out the pages and kept the ink for yourself. Without your lines, they lurched in confusion, unsure where to begin again. This was your masterstroke. Unavailability is power. Now you tasted the fissure widening in their confidence. They sensed their control fracturing. You felt no triumph. Pride is an echo of vanity, but you registered the alignment of your inner blueprint. You had become the site of your own authority, and authority does not beg for recognition. It simply, irrevocably, exists. Feel the cold clarity in this moment. Every demand they made, every plea they mouthed, was proof of their dependence on you. When they demanded your reaction, they revealed the gravity of your silence. When they offered kindness as leverage, they admitted your kindness was once their currency. And when they recast your withdrawal as cruelty, they exposed their fear of autonomy. This power does not roar. It whispers in the chambers of your restraint. It sharpens every glance, steadies every tone. It sits behind your eyes like a blade, unseen until unleashed. They cannot disarm you because they do not know where the blade begins. They cannot pierce you because there is no opening. You reshaped yourself into a fortress without doors. Soon they will retreat entirely, their silhouette shrinking against the horizon of your new perimeter. They will distance themselves out of instinct, not malice. They will leave your mental borderlands unmarked by their evidence. And in that absence, a more formidable presence will rise. You anchored in your own stillness, unchallenged. Let this body of silence be your testament. Let their retreat be the measure of your solidity. You are not a garden to be tended by others' approval, nor a stage for their applause. You are the ground beneath, unwavering, unclaimed. And as you stand on this ground, feel the gravity of your own center, unmoved, unshakable. Ahead lies the final reckoning, a truth that will haunt them longer than any apology you once offered. That truth will not comfort you. It will confirm you. It will carve the final boundary between the world that demanded you and the world you now command. They circled you one last time, drawn to the void you carved. Their gestures struck the emptiness you embodied, rattling against the perimeter of your resolve. Each question, each demand, echoed back at them like a rebuke. They realized too late that absence is a presence all its own, heavier than any word, deeper than any emotion. You stood as the still point in their storm, unmoved by their fury or their pleadings. They hurled accusations. You've become heartless. You're impossible to reach. But your heart was neither broken nor hardened. It was simply sovereign. Sovereignty has no heartbeat. It has a pulse so steady that storms crash and recede without leaving a mark. They couldn't drown you because you were the water itself. Watch them stumble through memory, searching for the person you once were. They comb through snapshots of your vulnerabilities, desperate to reconstruct the you they knew. But those moments are fossils, remnants of a life you have left behind. You exhumed them for examination, then buried them under the weight of your transformation. Fossils tell a story of what existed. You are evidence of what remains. They will try one final tactic: guilt. They'll remind you of your promises, your history, your shared moments. But guilt is a chain fashioned from the past. You broke every link the moment you stopped apologizing for your worth. In detachment, you disarmed their most potent weapon. They hold the past like a dagger. You hold the sheath. Feel the gravity of your detachment as it ripples outward, warping their expectations. Their attempts to engage you now look like frantic shadows against your stillness. Their voices thin, their words hollow. They realize respect isn't borrowed from your reactions, it's harvested from your self-possession. They can't command what they cannot ignite. In that final hesitation, you sense the shift, their departure. They will retreat into the comfort of their own making, seeking easier prey. They'll whisper about you with someone who still cares. They'll frame you as the villain to sanitize their own failure. Let them. Villains are remembered. Victims are forgotten. They warned you that you'd lose everything: friends, affection, understanding. But loss is a measure of value placed on externals. You have traded brittle alliances for unbreakable solitude. Solitude is not emptiness. It is the fertile silence where your power grows. In solitude, you refine your presence, recalibrate your absence, and fortify your boundaries until they become the landscape of your being. Recall the moment you first tasted this stillness. Your breath steadied, your chest softened, and you realized the only voice that truly mattered was the one inside you. You listened to its cadence, measured its tempo, and aligned every thought to its rhythm. In that moment, you ceased chasing validation and began inhabiting your own authority. They will call you unreachable. They will whisper you've changed. But change is the blade, and you are its wielder. You shaped yourself into a form they cannot touch. Their fingers brush against empty air. They will recoil, frightened by the solidity of your silhouette. This is not cruelty. It is clarity. It is the confrontation they always needed, but never asked for. You have shown them that power isn't planted in dominance. It's rooted in self-mastery. You have taught them that respect isn't purchased by sacrifice. It is summoned by unflinching presence. Feel the cold rush as their last words fade into the distance. Let the echo of their absence settle into your bones. In that echo, you find your true voice, soft, unwavering, undeniable. It speaks not of forgiveness or reconciliation, not of approval or appeal, but of something far more potent: sovereignty. They will churn through every justification they can muster, but desire for you dies the moment you refuse to fuel it. They understand now that your silence is the verdict and your detachment the sentence. They retreat into the shadows of your indifference, and there they will languish, haunted by the thing they cannot possess. You stand alone, not as a victim of their cruelty, but as the architect of your power. You forged your walls from silence, hammered your gates from stillness, and clad your soul in the armor of your own boundaries. They cannot breach what they cannot breach, and they cannot breach you. Carry this final image with you, the horizon untouched, the ground underfoot unwavering, your silhouette etched against an empty sky. You are the calm that commands the world to pause. You are the void they fear to fill. You are the final presence in an absence born of your own will. Their final faint came as a question hanging between accusation and plea. Is there nothing left of us? It trembled in the air, a confession masquerading as an ultimatum, but your answer was already written in the distance of your gaze. You did not reach back. You did not offer hand or word. You allowed the question to die in the space you commanded. In that death, you found a new rhythm, one without echo, one that did not circle back for affirmation. Recall the tremor that once undercut your gaze whenever they edged too close. You flinched at their shadows, at the ghost of their expectations. Now, you stand without flinch. The echo of your own heartbeat fills the space where fear once thrived. Each pulse is a metronome of sovereignty, counting out the cadence of your own command. They hear it in your silence, loud enough to deafen their pleas. They pivoted to nostalgia memories woven with laughter, with shared confidences, with promises you once kept. They painted the past in sepia tones, as though it might coax you into color again. But you banished color long ago, trading it for the clarity of monochrome certainty. The sepia lies cannot touch you. You regard each memory as a relic, cold and distant, devoid of the warmth they once claimed. You hold them at arm's length, and in that distance they lose gravity. They pleaded with logic, remember our years together. Think of what we built. Logic is futile against the calculus of boundary. You do not weigh years against betrayal. You do not calculate love against leverage. You trace the fracture lines in every promise, every concession, every silent acquiescence. And in that fracture, you found the equation. Absence minus reaction equals power. Let them tally the ruins of your shared history. You tally only the boundaries you erected in its wake. They appealed to pity. I can't go on without you. Pity is a lever to pry open your reserve. They thought your restraint would crack beneath their desperation. But pity is a toll booth, extracting payment in regret. You refused the fare. You refused the ledger. Your refusal resonated through the corridor of their desperation, magnifying its emptiness. They stood before an unstaffed toll, their pleas lost to an unattended gate. You remember the thrill when they first saw you unguarded, when you let your walls crumble for them. They claimed your vulnerability as triumph, convinced it was their victory. But victory is not handed out in broken shards. Victory is the architecture you design with intention. You reclaimed every shard of your vulnerability, fused it into steel, and reforged your identity in its crucible. Now their triumph tastes like ash in their mouth. They tried to bait you one last time with familiarity. Come back to me. Familiarity is the most insidious form of manipulation, because it wears the garb of comfort. You stripped away the garb and exposed its frame, a cage crafted in your own image. You will not step back into that cage. You will not handcuff your heartbeat to their needs again. You will not mistake their ease for acceptance. In their final hour of desperation, they offered control. Help me understand what you need. Control is the final illusion. You do not negotiate for your autonomy. You own it. You refuse to articulate needs as if they were goods to be traded. You stood in the raw expanse of your self-possession, needing nothing, wanting nothing, demanding no concession. In that expanse, you discovered a singular truth. Desire is a currency you no longer spend. Notice how their tone fragments into broken syllables, how their posture unravels in your presence. They learned respect. Too late respect cannot be summoned from surrender. It is drawn out by the absence of your dependency. They sought the script they once dictated. They found only your silence. That silence was a verdict harsher than any sentence you could speak. They will exit your life with their narrative intact. A narrative of your cruelty, your coldness, your transformation into someone unrecognizable. Let them carry that narrative. Villains occupy the legends that linger. Their version of you will become the cautionary tale, whispered among those who still fear your absence. They will use your story to warn others away from the abyss you embraced. In that warning lies your legacy. As you watch them recede into the annals of your past, feel the tautness in your chest loosen. The tension between who you were and who you are has released into the quiet horizon before you. You are neither the negotiator nor the victim. You are the arbiter of your own consequence. Your absence is not a void. It is a stage upon which you alone perform the unspoken laws of your being. A single breath falls between you and the world they left behind. In that breath lies every boundary you've upheld, every reaction you've withheld, every moment you chose indifference over concession. That breath is the reservoir of your power. Drink deeply. Ahead of you lies the final reckoning, the conclusion that none of them foresaw. When you turn from this scene, you carry the gravity of your own sovereignty, like an ember that never cooled. They will remember it long after your silhouette fades. You stand at the edge of everything they once commanded, feeling the void beneath your feet solidify into ground. There is no reconciliation, no turning back, only the final echo of your sovereignty settling into place. In this silence, you realize that true respect is not the reward for capitulation, but the consequence of refusal. Your absence is heavier than any presence you ever offered, and in that weight lies your unspoken verdict. Let this be your last lesson. Power is not seized through force, but through the withdrawal of consent. They chased your reactions. You gifted them silence. They hunted your vulnerability. You traded it for steel. When you step beyond this moment, nothing will invite you back, no plea, no memory, no promise. You will carry the gravity of your own boundaries as a flame in the dark, unyielding, unapproachable. If this resonance stirred something unspoken within you, subscribe and share the silence that refuses to be filled.